has ruled that Member of Parliament for South Central St. Catherine, Dr. Andrew Wheatley, be charged for illicit enrichment. This follows an investigation into Dr. Wheatley's earnings, acquisition of assets, and sale of assets over the period December 31, 2013 to December 31, 2022. There are three more charges, the IC says it will lay against Dr. Wheatley based on its investigation covering the 9-year period. The details of the investigation are captured in an 89-page report prepared by the IC and tabled in the House of Representatives on Wednesday afternoon. George Davis reports.
Dr. Andrew O'Brien Wheatley returned to Andrew Holness's cabinet less than a year ago, Wednesday, September 17, 2025, as Minister without portfolio in charge of science, technology, and special projects. Before that, the 53-year-old spent 7 years on the backbench after resigning as Minister of Energy in July 2018, owing to allegations of corruption and nepotism at the state-owned oil refinery Petrojam. In that matter, Dr. Wheatley was never charged with any offense, nor was any claim of misconduct even brought against him. His battle then was to clear his name of speculation and suspicion in the public square. Back then, he wasn't even required to defend himself in a court of law. But this is a fight of an altogether different kind. This time, the Integrity Commission has ruled that he should answer 4 charges relating to his income and assets between December 31, 2013 and December 31, 2022. The rulings form the crucial segment of a letter sent to the Houses of Parliament on June 11 this year by Executive Director of the IC, Craig Beresford. So what are the 4 charges? Charge 1, knowingly making a false statement in a statutory declaration. That charge, the IC says, is a breach of the Parliamentary Integrity of Members Act. Charge 2, knowingly making a false statement in a statutory declaration. That charge, the IC says, is a breach of the Integrity Commission Act. Charge 3, failing without reasonable cause to provide any information as the Director of Information and Complaints may require. That charge, the IC says, is a breach of the Corruption Prevention Act. So what has caused the IC to recommend these charges? Well, the Commission says when it did its tabulation of Dr. Wheatley's statutory declarations and its investigations for the 9-year period, it established that Dr. Wheatley had total income of $187 million. Broken out, this total income comprised of $4.8 million as his opening bank balance, $78.27 million in loans, $18.94 million in investments, $6.04 million for insurance policies, $51.38 million in salary and allowances, $542,000 for interest on accounts, and $8.69 million for rental income. The IC's tabulation in Table 4 on page 51 of its report puts that total at $187,287,000. However, when our news center tallied the numbers from that table ourselves, we found an error. The total income was $168.68 million. So it seems from the numbers presented that the IC has made a mistake in its calculation. The actual total of Dr. Wheatley's income is $18.6 million less than the figure published in its report. The IC says it tabulated Dr. Wheatley's assets acquired and other expenditure to be in the amount of $351.53 million. Broken out, that figure is made up of $41.88 million as the closing balance in his bank accounts, $70.67 million for loan repayment, $3.7 million for investments, $48.4 million for properties acquired, $10.49 million for motor vehicles acquired, and $176 million for expenses. When we double-checked the figures, that total is indeed correct. So when the IC subtracted the total sum of Dr. Wheatley's income from the total sum of his assets acquired and sold over the 9-year period, it came up with a figure of $164.25 million. And it's that number which the IC says represents the value of Dr. Wheatley's assets over the 9-year period, for which he has failed to provide sufficient evidence to support. But if you adjust the figure for what appears to be the IC's error in calculation, then the total of the illicit enrichment is $182.85 million. The IC was not done with Dr. Wheatley. It recommended that the Commissioner General of Tax Administration Jamaica look into the matter, concerning one of Dr. Wheatley's companies, Western Medical. According to the IC, Western Medical filed nil tax returns for the years 2011 and 2012, despite Dr. Wheatley providing evidence that the company earned between $15 million and $26 million over those 2 years. George Davis for Nationwide News.
Meanwhile, Dr. Andrew Wheatley has rejected the Integrity Commission's findings as patently false, inaccurate, and grossly misleading. In a media statement issued within an hour of the report being tabled, Dr. Wheatley rejected the Commission's conclusion that some $164 million in assets could not be supported by his lawful earnings. He says it was odd, unreasonable, and unfair that the Director of Investigations decided not to take into account approximately $168 million in rental income, which he said he lawfully earned and declared over the 9 years. He says the director also ignored the verifiable sources he used to repay some $50 million in loans for his real estate business. On the finding that he received 6 apartments declared as gifts, Dr. Wheatley said these came out of a joint venture to develop land and that such arrangements were not unusual in the real estate industry. The Member of Parliament for South Central St. Catherine has stressed that the Commission had made no allegation that he benefited unlawfully from public funds. Dr. Wheatley says he has instructed his attorneys to vigorously contest the charges in court and was confident of a positive outcome. The statement was issued through his attorney, Abe Dabdoob. National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang says third country nationals who come into Jamaica under the Memorandum of Understanding with the United States will not be detained on arrival. As he explained it, persons transferred under the MOU will be nationals of countries other than Jamaica. Mahiri Stewart reports.
Dr. Chang says the MOU was signed last week Wednesday, June 10, after extensive negotiations. The starting date to begin receiving TCNs has not yet been established. Neither does the MOU say when the arrangement will end. Dr. Chang told a post-cabinet media briefing earlier on Wednesday the TCN arrangement was a request from the U.S. and was not suggested by Jamaica. According to Dr. Chang, no deportees will be accepted under the arrangement.
Jamaica is not receiving any deportees from the United States, except Jamaicans. I repeat that. We have no agreement, no understanding to accept deportees from the United States. We accept every month 100 Jamaican deportees. And we have the expertise and the staff to manage their entry into Jamaica. That arrangement was negotiated by professionals so that they can come in a structured, organized manner and be resettled in Jamaica, their homeland.
According to the United Nations Refugee Agency, a deportee is a person forcefully or physically removed from a country to their country of origin or a third country by the authorities of the host country. By the same source, a third country national is any person who is not a national of either the host state or the country from which they are removed. Minister Chang says none of the TCNs will be detained.
There will be nobody detained, nobody with intention, as part of an international understanding, not a bilateral agreement. The activity to transition them to Jamaica is a bilateral agreement negotiated between the governments who are allies in many areas.
Dr. Chang says the number of TCNs to be accepted is 25. He says if all 25 do decide to stay in Jamaica, immediate breaks will be applied to the program. He explains that TCNs who want to settle in Jamaica will have to go through the formal asylum application process.
An agreement to transition to Jamaica, some third country nationals from the United States. The number is 25. It's an understanding, and at no time will the number exceed 25 because we have the right to refuse anyone at any time. And both parties can terminate the entire agreement without any long-term notice. The process is basically the operational procedure is still being worked out and then being negotiated by the professionals, and it will be some time before we see anyone landing here.
So how will they be housed while transiting in Jamaica? According to Dr. Chang, that's still to be finalized with the International Organization for Migration, the UN-affiliated agency that supports governments in managing migration and displacement. However, he says the understanding so far is that the United States government will cover the initial stay of the TCNs in Jamaica.
That's one of the issues that has been worked out. We'll have to work with the International Organization for Migration to find the appropriate combination for them. Until that is done, we can't receive any.
At least 7 other countries in the Caribbean and Latin America have entered into similar agreements with the United States. These are Belize, Costa Rica, Paraguay, Panama, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, and St. Kitts and Nevis. Mahiri Stewart for Nationwide News.
Meanwhile, Executive Director of Jamaicans for Justice, Michael Jackson, says the Jamaica-United States MOU on third country nationals raises questions about potential human rights breaches.
The challenge that we're having is that we are not aware of what those safeguards are, and the broader fear that we have is Jamaica complicit in what is ultimately a human right breach? And that is very problematic for us, because if you look at these circumstances and the procedures, due process, international law, US's own domestic law, there are certain procedures that the United States must follow regarding individuals.
Speaking on Nationwide this morning on